Hi, welcome. We are.
Well, I should say welcome. We are in Stockholm, but anyhow, in Sweden.
Oh,
But over to you.
that's true. All right, we're live in Sweden. Hope you can hear us. Please make some sound so we. Oh, good. People can hear us. We got some hearts there. Fantastic. So we're live in Stockholm, and you just got a welcome from our special guest, former Swedish Prime Minister, Mr. Carl Bildt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to have you here. On a sunny day. Not particularly warm, but still sunny.
Yes, I think that's a key point. Not particularly warm.
No, there was snow. There
was snow last night, and I was freezing today.
Well.
All right, welcome. This is Shake the World. We're live with Carl Bildt, and we're talking about why Sweden rocks. Sweden has something special about it, and it tops so many global rankings.
We do. Not all of them, has to be said.
Well, almost all of them. Right?
Yeah, but I think the Norwegians are the most happy people in the world, or the Danes are something. But I mean, the Nordic word is a fairly pleasant word, and Sweden perhaps is the top of the north.
Yes. Oh, you're trying to be modest. I like that.
I'm trying to be nice, yeah.
Okay, but can you explain? It's not the weather, right? It's not. I mean, I don't think it's the weather because I was freezing today. But is it something else? Is it the water? I mean, what is it?
I don't think it's the water either. No, I mean, it's history, culture, tradition. I mean, a couple of small nations, Sweden being among them. We have been very open to the world. I think the open nature of our economies and our societies have been one of the keys to it. We have been overall fortunate to live in peace for a fairly long period. We have, we are right size in the sense we are not so small to be totally irrelevant, but we are not so big that we tend to think that we can dominate others. Accordingly, we have an open mind. We need to learn from others. We understand that success is by integrating with the rest of the world in different ways. And that has given a vitality to our society and a strength to our economy, which has then made it possible for us to spend money, private and public, on different public goods, be that social welfare or education system or whatever else. So it's a combination of factors, some of them by design, some of it by luck and default. But here we are. And
okay. All right.
And at the moment also, if you look at what's happening here, in Stockholm is one of the start-up cities of, I think even some people say that per capita we are second to the Silicon Valley in startup. That might be somewhat exaggerated, but we are not that bad.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Welcome. We have many people who just joined. This is Shape the World, live with the World Economic Forum. And we're talking about why Sweden rocks. If you couldn't read the card we had up earlier, why Sweden rocks. We have a very special guest, someone who should know why Sweden rocks. Swedish former Prime Minister Carl Bildt. And he's taking your questions. And you can start firing away. I already saw we have people watching in Malaysia. Thank you. So if you have any questions at all, we want to do this in two segments. The first segment is why Sweden is so special. Do you have any questions? Maria has a question. Do you have school vouchers in Sweden? What do you think?
We do, as a matter of fact, yeah. That was one of the things that was introduced when I was Prime Minister. That is by now some time ago. That was 25 years ago. We introduced the school voucher system. It was immensely controversial. It has been, in my opinion, extremely successful. It is controversial again because some of people on the left want to limit the profitability of some of these companies. Not that they are immensely profitable, but I no question. It has increased the dynamism of our education system.
I think I just spotted a negative comment. The first one forever. Alisa in Sweden, she says it's very hard to get an apartment here.
Yes.
Is that true?
No, she's absolutely right. I don't know if she is from Sweden or wherever, but I mean, it's true. Among the big problems that we have at the moment, I mean, no question, housing, particularly in Stockholm. Stockholm is growing by 40,000-50,000 people. And we have, sorry to say, we have an overregulated housing market, which means that there is a shortage of good housing in Stockholm. And that is one of the things that are now limiting the possibilities for startups and others to expand in Stockholm, because people are coming to Stockholm. They want to work here. It's a nice place to be. Despite being slightly cold today. Sorry about that. But housing is a problem. She's entirely right.
All right, thank you, Alisa. If you just joined, we're talking about why Sweden rocks. The World Economic Forum published a study about why Sweden beats so many other countries on so many indices. And former Prime Minister Carl Bildt is our guest. He's been incredibly modest, but frank. And I'm going to give you a roll call here. So Sweden ranks number 1 on Forbes' annual list of the best countries to do business. Sweden ranks number 6, I believe, on the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index.
Yeah.
That's a tough place to be.
Yep.
Great gender equality, closed the gender gap here in Sweden,
Yep.
with more women in senior positions.
Yep.
Low levels of corruption, in terms of how clean it is globally. I don't want to make any comments about other countries, so let's quickly move on. Highly innovative, ranks really highly on the European Commission's European Innovation Scorecard. It has a powerful passport. Swedes can travel to 176 places without a visa. That's insane. I mean, I'm sorry. And let's go on. It's a great place to grow old. I tested this one. I spoke to the cab driver. He gave me a roll call about things that were just fantastic about Sweden, including it's a great place to grow old. Now, can you please explain, why is this, for those who just joined, what makes Sweden so special? Did you deliberately target these indices?
No, we didn't. And it's been ups and downs, but I mean, we went, look at it in a slightly longer historical perspective, because that's fairly useful. Go back sort of 100, 150 years in time. We were one of the poorest countries of Europe.
Okay.
We lost, if you look at countries that lost people, or where people were forced out of poverty to emigrate to America, it was Ireland, Norway and Sweden, because I mean people were dying of hunger, and they had to seek a future somewhere else.
Okay.
Then, by luck to a certain extent, raw materials, innovative spirit, entrepreneurship, we started a race, and in 100 years we went from one of the poorest countries of Europe to one of the richest countries in the world. I think we and Japan
That's pretty
were
impressive.
the ones. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. We were fortunate enough to stay out of war. That helped. We were not attacked. We were fortunate to stay out of the First and Second World Wars. And that clearly helped quite a lot.
Okay.
And that made it possible, the economic success, to also invest in social welfare and public goods of different sorts. We had a somewhat more less successful period during the 70s and the 80s were not particularly good, and then from the 90s onwards we've been in a take-off period. We have been really, we are a globalized nation, we have benefited from globalization, we want to be globally successful. And when we are globally successful, that makes us successful also at home in our own country.
Well, that's a bit controversial. Are you suggesting globalization is a good thing?
I think globalization is a fantastically good thing.
All right, okay. Nice and frank.
Yeah, absolutely. And true.
Okay, but not very popular right now.
Well, there are some who want to build walls and want to end globalization and go backwards in time. That happens now and then, but there's no question that we have been... I mean, I sometimes make, which I think is, just take an excursion on that, I was born some time ago in a world of 2.5 billion people. We are now 7.5 billion people.
That's true.
The anticipation was for quite some time that population explosion was going to bring more and more people into poverty, despair and all sorts of evil things. It's been the other way around. I mean, poverty is a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. We are taking away diseases, we are doing things that are miraculous. And that is the essence of globalization. To say that that is not a good thing is to lose perspective of the direction of history, I think.
All right, thank you so much. If you've just joined, this is Shape the World, live with the World Economic Forum. My name is Yemi, I'm your host, and we're live with former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt, and we're talking about why Sweden rocks. And you have the microphone, so Alisa got the first comment in. I can see lots of comments in here, a lot of love for Sweden, actually. Someone called Shahid talked about how he came here recently and loved it. People watching in Tibet. I think the name was Tenzin. Thank you, Tenzin.
See if we have some critical questions as well. That's more fun.
All right, let's get some critical questions. You heard the man. Some critical questions to test why Sweden rocks. Now, the other thing that Carl Bildt has agreed to do with us is to talk about global issues. Now, he does know about the world, not just because he was Prime Minister, but also foreign affairs. Foreign Affairs Minister as well?
8 years I had to do that.
Amazing. Okay, good. And he's promised to take any question about any current global issue. But please hold your horses. Let's focus on Sweden first. So do you have any more questions about Sweden, or are you convinced that Sweden rocks? How...
Everyone seems to be positive.
Everyone's too positive.
How boring.
Alan wants to know how Sweden is going to cope with the problem of aging. I'll let you answer that, because the cab driver blew me away with all the things they do for people who are getting older. But I'm sure there are more permutations to consider.
I wonder who paid you that charge. Pay taxi driver, the cab driver. That is undoubtedly one of the problems that we have in our societies. I mean, starting from sort of the economic aspects of it, to have a pension system that is going to be reliable and durable. We did a fundamental reform of the pension system, that's 20 years ago, and I think we have one of the better ones in Europe. Not perfect, but one of the better ones. So people can really rely on the pension system. Then we have an ongoing debate about care for the elderly, whether we are doing enough or whether we are doing it sufficiently good. The private alternatives are booming, really, in that particular sector. And then I think we need to look at societies that are ahead of us. Japan is clearly ahead of us, very much ahead of us due to the demographics.
Okay.
And we are looking at them and what we can learn.
So you're always learning?
Well, we're always learning, and that is why sometimes when people are saying, as you are saying, that Sweden is so good and everything, I'm saying, take it easy, guys. Because if we say that we're good on everything, then we stop improving. Sure. And I don't think we are heaven. I don't think we are paradise. I don't think we are perfect. I think what makes us good is recognition that there is more to be done.
Yeah.
And that clearly applies to these issues as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, guys. I see a lot of love on the feed. You can see that too. This is not just me talking. And lots of positive comments. So don't be greedy. If you love what you're watching, please hit that share button. And, you know, let's get some more people on here. Let's get some more people to feel the love as well. Okay, I see lots of questions for the second bucket.
Okay.
People are asking things about global issues already.
Yeah, surprise, surprise.
Let's see if there's anything about Sweden.
Otherwise, we can jump to the word and then we can come back to Sweden. Let's
do that.
You are the boss.
I follow your lead there with all the experience. Hi, Juan. We have people watching in Colombia as well. I saw a few posts. Francisco, tell us what your problem is. Okay, are you ready to go to global issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I can't promise answers on everything, but I can have views on some of them, yeah.
Okay, you promised frank views, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so diplomacy out the window. Get your questions in now. Former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt is going to talk about any global issue. All right, and don't forget to share so we can get some more love on this feed. All right, so Francisco is saying, in Colombia, we have a major problem with corruption. Oh, this was a bit too easy. Is there any corruption in Sweden? If so, how did you fight it?
We probably have some, but as we pointed out, we are fairly good on all of these corruption issues.
Fourth best in the entire world.
Yeah, but I mean, history again. Go back to late 18th century, that's quite some time ago, we were enormously corrupt.
Okay.
Some time ago. It took some time. But I mean, rigorous law enforcement, transparency, and be tough on it. And that is what happened in Sweden. And so we went from being extremely corrupt, and we were also corrupted by foreign governments trying to buy politicians in different directions.
No, people do that?
Oh, they did. They did. Okay. We had the French who were sort of bribing some people, and the Russians were bribing some other people. Those were the days. But they give it up bribing us because it doesn't really work. No, we have... Swedish experience shows that no one is immune to it. It's not a genetic defect. It's a question of how you organize your society and how careful and diligent you are in fighting corruption. So what we've done, everyone can do it. As a matter of fact, everyone must do it.
All right. Thank you so much. Questions are coming thick and fast, so I have to move on. But very humble response there on corruption. It can be done, and you have to keep fighting it. And sometimes corruption comes from outside. And they'll follow your lead. So thank you. Mohammed has a question. What is your opinion on the recent attack in Stockholm? Is hatred and racism increasingly engulfing some parts of Swedish societies?
Not really, but clearly we are affected by the tendencies that we see in quite a number of other countries. I mean, what we saw in Stockholm was an attack of the same sort that we've seen, or to the extent that we know the background. An attack of the same sort that we saw in Nice, we saw it in Berlin, there was an element of that in London Westminster. An individual uses a vehicle, a truck or a car, to try to kill a couple of people and kill 4 people. Immensely tragic. 2 of them foreigners, by the way. The man was arrested fairly fast, and he has confessed. But the authorities are busy trying to find out the background. Why did he do it? Was there anyone else involved? And this is something that we have to fight in our respective societies all over Europe and all over the world. I do say to people, however, all over Europe, that if you look at it in perspective, we have less of terrorism now than we've had historically. Bataclan in Paris was bad. Turkey has been badly affected. Otherwise, it's so far isolated, tragic, horrible cases. But it doesn't disrupt and should not disrupt our societies.
Thank you very much. And all our condolences, definitely my condolences for the attack.
Thank you.
Okay, if you've just joined, this is Shape the World, live with the World Economic Forum. And we're talking with former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt. And right now we're talking about global issues. So if you have any questions about global issues, he's ready to give you a frank opinion on the global issues. So anything. We started off with corruption, now we talk about terrorism in Sweden. But if you have any questions on global issues, please post them in the feed and you get a live response. Now, let me...
You are the boss of the feed.
Mustafa would like to know, and maybe before you answer, but I'll give you the question. How could a country like Morocco rock? Now, if you missed it, we had a big poster on why Sweden rocks earlier. So we'll see what you think about Morocco. Now, guys, I still have too much greed on show. We have a lot of hearts, but not enough shares. Please, if you love this, hit the share button and get some of your friends to come in and share the love. Please hit the share button. Now, what do you think? How can Morocco rock?
Every country rocks in its own particular way. I mean, Morocco is a fantastic geographic location on the Atlantic. It has a cultural and rich culture, rich history. Is loved by a lot of people who go there. Yes. Vacationers from Europe and from elsewhere, you included. So it rocks for you.
That's for me.
It has, of course, less of economic development than Sweden at this particular juncture in history. But I mean, the same recipes as elsewhere. Be proud of your country. Be proud of what you can do. Be open to the world. Don't close yourself in. Engage with the world and let the world engage with you. And build on the traditions that are yours. There's no reason why not Morocco can rock in the same way as Sweden can.
All right, you got it. It's official. Morocco rocks and can rock the same way as Sweden.
Absolutely.
All right, next question goes to Sia Rawi in Malaysia. So Sia Rawi says, we have unbalanced development in Malaysia. Mm-hmm. All the development is in the capital city. And it's overcrowded with all industry, business, everything. How do you tackle this in Sweden? I'm
not quite certain that we are that good at that. But what you are talking about is, in terms of Malaysia and KL and Sweden and Stockholm, same thing. What we see is a global process of urbanization. I think we're soon going to have 50% of all of the world's population living in cities. Yeah. Because particularly young people, they go to the big cities because there are more lights, so to say, more dynamic opportunities. So the process of urbanization across the globe is with us. And I think we should recognize, can't stop it. There are positive elements to it. But we need to make certain that our urban environments are secure, are good, are environmentally friendly in ways that is perhaps not always the case. I haven't been to Kuala Lumpur for quite some time, but same thing all over the world. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. If you just joined in live with former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt, and we're talking now about global issues. Any global issue, and you wanted a world leader to comment on it, this is it. Now, he was not just a former Prime Minister, he was actually Minister of Foreign Affairs for 8 years. So he can talk pretty much about any global issue. Let's get those questions in. We have one from Peter Huffman. Thank you, Peter. Peter is wondering, what is Sweden's position on Russia extending its influence in the region? I'm not sure I can give you Sweden's official position, well, but I probably can. But okay, fine, go ahead. It depends on what you mean by influence. Influence, fine, but invading countries, no. And that's a distinction that is fairly important. If a country wants to look attractive by the fact that it's a successful economy, a successful society, or strong culture, that's influence. That's what we call soft power. Fine, I'm in favor of all countries trying to do that. But what has been the problem with Russia is, of course, in terms of particularly Ukraine, invading, sending in troops, tanks, soldiers, shooting people. We've had 10,000 dead in the fighting in eastern Ukraine, and that was initiated by Russia, and trying to alter the borders by taking over Crimea. I mean, that's fundamentally incompatible with not only European values and European interests, but also with global stability. And I think, as a matter of fact, the effect of that is that Russia has lost influence. Russia had far more influence in Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia are nations that are fairly close to each other historically and culturally. Now they have turned Ukraine into an anti-Russian nation by the actions that they have taken, and that, I think, is long-term a big loss for Russia and for all of Europe.
Thank you. Frank comments there. Now, maybe we should add that in defense of our Russian brothers and sisters, they have a different version of the story.
Well, Mr. Putin has a different version of the story, that's for certain. Yes.
Okay. All right, Norman, you get the next question. Norman wants to know, once artificial intelligence becomes the driving force of the global economy, what would humans be left to do? And do you like the idea of a universal income? Thank you, Norman.
No, because I don't think a universal income can be organized. I'm in favor of a world where everyone has an income, but my income is going to be different from your income, and somewhat dependent upon sort of what we do or what we want to do and our choices and things like that. I don't think you can equalize the entire world. It's not going to work. Artificial intelligence, is that going to take over? I don't think so. Not within any time span that I have any reason to think more in a more organized way of. But different machine learning and things like that, I think it can help us quite a lot in organizing our lives. I think it can help us as human beings. But when things go on, yes, there will be further down the line ethical issues that needs to be considered and that needs to be sort of discussed. And the thing that can worry me in that respect is that we might see a difference between sort of the value systems in different societies producing different answers to those ethical issues. I think we're just in the beginning of that global debate, but that's going to be an important one. But I'm essentially optimist here as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Raphael, you get the next question. Raphael would like to know, what is your opinion about Mexico and the new immigration implementations of the U.S. government?
Well,
softball question there.
Well, softball question. No, I think President Trump is messing it up with Mexico. I've met Mexican friends in the last few weeks and lots of American friends who are saying the same. Mexico, big, important country, 100 million people. And a very prospering relationship with the United States in economic and in cultural terms. And to portray Mexico as an enemy or Mexicans as enemies and build walls and try to go away from free trade, I think that also feeds sentiments in anti-American, anti-gringo sentiments, to put it in those terms, anti-gringo sentiments in Mexico. And they have elections coming up. That are going to be sort of contrary to the development of harmonious relationships in all of North America. We have, Europe has a good functioning free trade agreement between Mexico and the European Union. No one has been complaining about that. We think that's to the benefit of both Mexico and the European Union. Yeah. And I think the Americans or the relevant parts of Washington should see the wisdom of that as well.
All right, thank you. Frank responses to questions. You're driving this, so please send in more questions. We are live. This is Shape the World, brought to you by the World Economic Forum, and we're live with Carl Bildt, former Swedish Prime Minister. And right now we're talking about any global issue. You want an opinion from a world leader, a recommendation, a thought, he'll give you a frank response. Now, and while you're at it, lots of hearts, please remember to hit the share button. Let's get some more love on this feed. Let's share the love. And speaking of sharing, Omar would like to know, since Sweden is so fantastic, do you have any plans to share your best practices with Africa?
Well, I think we are every country should learn from first its own experience. That's always the most important, but then learn from others. And there are people coming to Sweden and trying to learn from our experiences. They're coming to learn from other countries as well. Then not entirely easy to export the exact models to other countries, because we are different and there are different levels of economic development. But we've had, for example, long-standing in terms of development aid, in terms of trade relationship with different African countries. And I hope that has had a beneficial impact on the development of some of the African countries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next question to Jorge or George. George would like to know, is there a future of an European Union? And if yes, what, in your view, would be the main motivation for the regular aspiring EU citizen to actually want this future?
Well, absolutely. I don't think we can do without the European Union, because the fact is that we Europeans are now, I think we are 7% of the population of the world. And if you go a couple of decades ahead, we're going to be 4% of the population of the world. We are affected by developments of the world. We are very small nations. And a lot of things that we need to do for the benefit of our citizens, we can only do together. The nations are too small in order to deal with issues of peace and security, obviously, the digital future. We can't have sort of digital borders crisscrossing the continent of Europe. We need to be together in order to be able to influence the world. And also issues that have been in the forefront lately, be that security in terms of terrorism, or be that migration and all of the challenges that we have there. So the European nations are coming together because they're too small. And it's only by working together. And that's a trend we see all over the world.
Yeah.
That regions are seeing that they have a lot together, and Europe has gone further than others. I mean, we are democracies. We build fairly elaborate democratic common decision-making structures centered on Brussels, and I think they essentially work.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, so many great questions coming in just as we're reaching the end. I want to say thank you to everybody who's sharing. Lots of sharing has actually been happening. So I have to give you credit. I was complaining earlier.
Yeah.
You guys have been amazing.
There was a lot of complaining.
Yeah, I've been amazing. Oh, we're here. All right, fantastic. All right, yeah, we're here. Don't panic. We're still here. So this is Shape the World, live from Stockholm with Carl Bildt, former Swedish Prime Minister. And if you've just joined us, hit that share button, get some more love on. If you've been here already and you've already shared, big thank you. All right, Rohit had a big open question. And I just wanted your frank response to Rohit's question. Maybe you can expand on it later, because we've got so many questions. But Rohit wants to know, what do you feel about the current state of the world? All right, I think you got the answer right there.
An hour. Well, it's I can be fairly brief. Enormous opportunities.
Okay.
If you look at the development of science and technology, I mean, fascinating opportunities. But at the same time, geopolitics and political strains and tensions, it's a more complicated period. There are more clouds on the horizon than there were some 10 years ago, at the same time as the opportunities are there. So it's both good and bad. It's a more diversified, more challenging environment. Okay.
And I promise, before we close, we'll come back to you so you can give us some closing thoughts. And maybe you can expand there. Now, Esther, you get the next question. Esther has been very specific. If you just joined live with Carl Bildt, he's answering questions about anything going on in the world, and he's being frank. Esther wants to know, maybe this is a bit too much, but hey.
You never know.
Who would you have voted for in the French elections, and why? Whew.
Well, I would probably have voted for Mr. Macron. Politically, I would have been fairly close to Mr. Fillon as well, but I think he messed it up with this thing with his wife. I regret that. The one I sort of thought was very good from the beginning was Mr. Alain Juppé, who has broad experience and a broad following. But Mr. Macron is, of course, younger, and Mr. Macron was campaigning under the European flag, which I found sort of attractive and modern. And has a vision of an open France and an open Europe, which I like. So I would probably have voted for him.
All right, thank you. Hey, I thought that was a curveball. You made it look like it was a softball.
Well,
All right, thank you. We have one from India. Ratho would like to know, what do you think about the Make in India campaign? Is it a good idea?
I think it's a good idea because clearly it's an element, of course, of an attempt to catch up with China in terms of industrialization. Where I think that, so I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good thing, and Swedish industry is quite engaged in trying to help with it and trying to be part of it. What I think is even more important for India, and where India has a competitive advantage, is innovation. India has fantastic talent. And what you see, what Indians all over the world, be that in Silicon Valley or be that in Stockholm, are doing in terms of startup companies, innovation and IT, that is really impressive. And that is where I think India has a significant long-term comparative advantage. Make in India is fine. Innovation in India might be even more significant long-term.
Great, thank you. All right, man. Give me more difficult questions. Melly has one. Melly's asking, is Europe becoming a divided continent between those who want to see kind of more globalization, more union, and those who do not?
Well, clearly that is a dividing line that is there in the politics of Europe, and we saw it in the Brexit debate, where the Brexit decision was clearly driven by some people who wanted to stay away from the word and build walls. I wouldn't say that was everyone, but there was a fairly strong streak of that particular sort. We clearly see it in the French election, where Marine Le Pen is favouring she's against globalization. She wants to close the borders. She wants to leave the European Union. She wants to go back to some sort of idealized version of the 16th century or whatever it is, I don't know. Yes, so that division is there. But I'm rather encouraged. I think the main lines of European policy will stay in open Europe and an open world.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now, I'm afraid there's so many fantastic questions, but we have to let him go. It's really unfortunate. Now, if you're watching this after the feed, please post a comment or a question, of course, because we will watch this feed and respond and see if we can, if you have any really great questions, we'll get some responses from him as well. But before we go, I promised that, Norman has a question from outer space. Do you mind if we take Norman's question?
Outer space?
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
All right. Norman would like to know, where we go, should we begin to colonize space?
Well, we will. Whether you and I will do it, I don't know. Well, I mean, I doubt that it's going to happen. We'd have a pause in manned space exploration for a while, but I mean, if you see the enthusiasm that is now there on different projects, go back to the moon or go to Mars, things like that, within a couple of decades, I'm quite certain that we will have sort of significant manned exploration of, say, Mars. Whether we will go there and colonize it, that might take some time. But mankind will not stop expanding its horizons and explore the unknown, which I think is the way it should be, the way it must be.
Okay. We're wrapping up, people. Thank you for staying there. I see a personal question from Jackie. And secretly, I'd asked Carl Bildt if he would take some personal questions. And he said, let's see.
Depends.
Yeah, it depends. So, Jackie, let's see. All right, so Jackie would like to know, do you reserve some personal time just as thinking time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
No, that you must do. Thinking time and reading time, which is often the same.
Okay.
And sometimes writing time, because you think when you write.
Okay.
But clearly, you must have a significant amount of time. Aircrafts, I'm in favor of internet and all of those things, yes, but I mean, internet and aircrafts I can do without. It's beginning to come now. Otherwise, it's a fairly good period. When
you said internet and aircraft. Oh.
An aircraft.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Right, but no, absolutely. You must have reserve some time to thinking, reading, contemplating, and discussing with friends, which is another good way of learning and developing.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the personal question. Now, we do have to let him go. I promised that we'd give you an opportunity for closing thoughts. You're live watching Shape the World. We're live with Carl Bildt, former Swedish Prime Minister. He's going to give us some closing thoughts, so it's not over yet. You can still hit that share button, get some more love, get some more people to listen in. But we've talked a bit about why Sweden rocks. A few people have come in and asked, share some secrets of success, please back up to the beginning of the feed. He kind of shared it at least 2 major streams he shared. So lots of nuggets in there. And then we've talked about global issues, and he's talked about lots of global issues. And now I'd like to invite you to please just leave us with some closing thoughts. Anything you want to share?
Well, I'm happy that you sort of give attention to Sweden. It's we are the top of Europe. Not only Sweden, I think the Nordic world, the Baltic world. We are small, medium-sized, fairly innovative, fairly open economies with a fairly vibrant culture. I hope that we will continue to develop as open to the world and open to the influences, and also engage with the rest of the world. That is, I think, one of the key things that have made Sweden great. Not again, but will continue to make Sweden great in the future, along with the other countries, the Nordic world, the European world. So thank you for the attention, and let's learn from each other to be even better in the future.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much. This has been an open conversation with Carl Bildt, former Swedish Prime Minister. As you can see, he's been frank. He's been very humble. You see that if you watch this again. Lots of humility on the feed, lots of learning, and lots of openness and engagement. So thank you all. Please continue to post your comments or your questions. We all learn from them, and it helps everybody to shape the world.
And thank you for coming here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
in
having me.
spite of the slightly chilly April.
Yeah, if you could organize the weather.
Well. No. April weather is always like this in Sweden. Come in May.
I am freezing. Seriously.
No, yeah. We can. There's something problematic with Sweden, evidently.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Goodbye. See you guys next time. Thank you.